Hello, everyone. Arun here, and welcome to our podcast, Who Moved My Career. Along with me, I have my amazing co-host.
Hey, Arun, Nicole McNamara here. So excited that we're finally doing this. It's happening.
Yay! I am so excited about this, Nicole. I couldn't sleep last night that we're cutting this podcast.
Hopefully, that was a good, excited one, as
It
opposed
was
to
an
we know that there's the other
excitement.
way.
It was an excitement. I couldn't sleep night.
Good.
So, Nicole, we've been in this industry, tech industry, for a really long time. You've been an amazing innovation executive. I've been an engineer, architect, leader, and and we're kind of in this moment where our whole collective humanity work group is going through a tectonic shift in the job, in the marketplace. We have some incredible forces like AI, all these job eliminations in the federal workforce happening, as well as tech workforce. And we had this amazing idea. You and I, we've been talking about this for a really long time. And we're like, we got to do something about it. So let's start off with this amazing idea that we had. And then we can tee up this podcast. And this is not going to be a one and done thing. This is a series that we're doing. We've got some incredible speakers that are coming in. And Nicole, tell us, what are we doing here? Why are we doing here? Let's start off with that.
So, first of all, it feels like the right moment. I think when you and I started the idea of a podcast, we were focused on tech, which is clearly having a growing up moment, uncomfortable moment, certainly some growing pains as we move into the world of AI. But wow, like the whole landscape shifted, right? I happen to live in DC and, it's a wasteland over here right now. People are very scared. They're being laid off. And these are people who, in tech, we are kind of used to the constant disruption and reorgs every year and the prospect of layoffs, but we have an entire new group of humans who haven't been through this before. And so it feels even more timely than just us tech folks. And when it happened to me, and I'll tell that story in a minute, I looked at the color coded books back behind me and I remembered the book, Who Moved My Cheese? Now, I think I had read this in grad school and honestly, I probably, skimmed it more than like deeply read it, but it resonated anyway. Like it stuck. And the idea was, how do you deal with change? And this was about, the metaphor was about mice. And so for me, it was like not only change, but a specific change about your career. And that's kind of where we came up with the moniker, Who Moved My Career? Because yes, there is change, broadly speaking, of which we are going through a lot. But you and I felt that there was a real gap in the market for people, especially at an executive level, especially in tech, but I think more broadly, who have really counted on a certain amount of stability or career longevity, and all of a sudden that's gone. And so I think that was the hope, was that God, if you and I are feeling this way, surely there are other folks who are also looking for something more human than a book. And I think podcast is where it fit in, right? That was the hope.
Yeah, I think the metaphor "who moved my career" is very appropriate here. I feel like we are all little mices waking up in the morning, getting ourselves ready, putting kids to
That's why it's called
school,
Rat Race.
and then walking or commuting to work. And this is a major disruption in people's lives.
Yeah.
So, "who moved my career" is very appropriate here. And we're going to talk about this, and we're going to talk about how we felt it and what we've heard it. We've done a significant amount of research within the market, talking to different people, job headhunters, job seekers, executives, hiring teams, and AI, and LinkedIn. So we have collected a lot of intel here, and Who Moved My Career is not just about us. It's actually not even about us. It's about you. It's about everybody. It's about this collective workforce that we all live in.
Yeah.
So, Nicole, this would be a great time to talk about the, the moment it all changed, because
Hmm.
one experiences it, whether it's a day or whether it's over a period of months or weeks. So, what was your moment?
Yeah. Well, kind of have two moments. The first one is the moment, and the second one is when I remembered the moment, and it became kind of something that will forever be in my brain. So last year, I took my 11-year-old daughter to see Taylor Swift. Now, it was obviously amazing, but I have kind of a love hate relationship with the Toronto airport. So we flew into Buffalo and drove up to Toronto. And we get there, we go to the hotel, we wear an obnoxious amount of glitter. I definitely wear something that is not appropriate for someone of my age. My daughter thinks it's great. We go and have this amazing experience at the concert. And it was such a, like, just on the other end of the spectrum from how I was feeling. It was full of love. It was full of kindness. These little girls trading bracelets and writing on each other's jackets. And it was just such a positive experience for at a moment that wasn't feeling particularly positive for me. But I also felt a certain amount of pressure to make it perfect for her because I wanted it to be a core memory. Thankfully, Taylor really delivered as per normal, and it was, this great. It was, I mean, the concert was just obviously amazing. She is just a lyrical genius. Let's say it. But on the way home, we're walking back to the hotel, and my feet are killing me, obviously. My shoulders are killing me because I had her on my shoulders for quite a bit of the show. And we turn a corner, and I don't know if you've been to Toronto, right?
Yeah, many times.
Yeah. So you know that like the downtown area is kind of this one color. It's like this brown mid 90s kind of just general brownish grayish color. And, that's not necessarily unpleasing, but when I turn the corner, I see this very bright yellow, a neon really, Adirondack chair. Now, it is the dead of winter in Canada. Like, what is a bright yellow Adirondack chair, that should be at a beach in the Outer Banks or where you live, doing on this random street corner? And there's a couple of them. But I turn the corner and I see it and I stop and my daughter says, like, "Are you okay? What's happening here?" And I realized that that very yellow chair, this like jarring, really out of place chair, is exactly where I was sitting when I did realize that my career was about to take a pivot that I wasn't ready for, I wasn't expecting, I really didn't want to happen, and I was completely unprepared for. And I looked at that chair and I said to her, "Oh, kind of nothing." But it was so like core to the moment. So there I was sitting in this chair. It wasn't cold at the time, so well, the chair wasn't as awkward. But that's when I realized that there were meetings happening without me. I wasn't in them. And there were going to be layoffs happening at my organization, and my team was going to be part of it. And my career was going to take a pivot that I was not prepared for. I happened to really love my job. I really love my team. I love the customers. I love the work. I love the company. I didn't want this to happen. And I'm not saying that if you wanted it to happen, it feels any better, or if you're prepared for it, it feels any better. I think the net effect is the same regardless. But at that moment, I was just as out of place and completely jarred as that yellow, obnoxious chair was. So now it's kind of become an icon for me, that ridiculous chair, because that's where it all changed for me. And it will forever be kind of burned in my memory. So, and I think it might be burned in my daughter's memory too at this point. So that's where I was when I realized that, life was going to look a little bit different than it had. What about you? Where were you? What was your experience? Was there a moment for you?
Before I share my experience, we have to take a picture of this yellow
Yeah.
Adirondack chair and then share it with our audience in Instagram.
100%. It
And
is. There's a couple of them, so we could do a whole photo shoot there. We have to
one day we're
find a
gonna go
Buffalo though.
there.
I do not mess around with the Toronto airport, so we have to drive. But other than that, I'm in.
I'm into. And one day we're gonna go there and have a beer,
Maybe a few.
maybe a few.
Cheers to our podcast success.
So for me, it was the moment when I learned that me or anybody in my organization are not part of a certain decisions, a series of decisions that are being made, or even preparation for those decisions. And it's a telltale sign that it's not it's not you, it's the organization, the function, the company. It has a different strategy. It's going in a different direction. And this is an important recognition, and we're very intentional about bringing this to the surface. And I'm personally very intentional about bringing it to the surface because this actually helps one. It actually, in my case, helped me embrace the moment.
Mm.
When I learned, okay, and I came to this conclusion that this is great. I get to do things that I have only
Did you
dreamt of doing.
really feel that?
I did. At
Oh, okay.
that
So it's
moment,
just me.
I did feel it. It was a liberating moment for me. I think this is where you and I are, opposite personas. And I was not part of it. But actually, I felt it. Then I also felt it. What the hell's happening? Why am I not there in it? Right? So I kind of went between these two polar opposite emotions. And in our world, we call it the blue zone and the gray zone.
This is your terminology, and I think it's a good one. And now we kind of use it really openly, especially in the Phoenix Club, which we'll talk
Yeah,
about.
we got to talk about Phoenix Club also, in which we're going to talk a little bit about it a little while from here. So my blue zone was, oh, this is great. I'm going to go do things that I always wanted to do, whether it is going to a national park or whether it is hiking the Pacific Crest Trail or whether it is going back to
This
grad
is where you
school.
and I differ so significantly.
It it kind of created this moment of uh, this amazing mental experience where I'm like, this is amazing that I'm going through this personally. And I've never been through in my career. So
Oh
it's
yeah, me
kind of like,
either. This was a first for me.
yeah, so it's the first of it. But it's very important for the thing that actually helped me get to that moment was kind of coming to this conclusion that it's not about me. It's about the broader ecosystem, economy,
Yeah.
the
I'm going
company.
to pause you there because I think you said something really important, which is it's not about me. And rationally, I think everybody gets that, right? This isn't fired for cause. This isn't, you racked up inappropriate things on your Amex. Like you were part of a layoff. But it doesn't always feel like that. Like for me, I would say I know my rational brain tells me it's not about me, but my heart tells me maybe it is about you. And so I think you can like occupy both ends of that spectrum and sometimes in the same day. So I'm so glad that you didn't have that immediate, oh, this is about me. And I think I didn't either, but it's also really normal, I think, for it to feel like it's about you.
Yeah, yeah, and this is where we talk about these two zones, blue
Mm,
zones and the gray zones. And I came to my gray zone, and we're going to talk a little bit about it also, right? What did I do in my gray zone? And actually, we should talk about it. Why don't we do this, right?
yeah.
Let's get into it. So, so when I got into my gray zone, um, and the gray zone is when you realize that okay, you got to go do something else. You got to pay your bills. You got to pay your rent. Mortgage, all sorts of things. Put the kids to school. And that's when the mindset of scarcity kicks off. That's when the mindset of holy shit, what am I gonna do kicks off.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, that was my gray zone moment. And when the gray zone kicked in, what I did, I live in California, so sunlight. I joke around. Sunlight is the biggest disinfectant uh, out there.
I'm with
So
you
I
on
went for a
this.
walk. I went for a long walk, and we have so many great parks and beaches over here. And right across my house, there is a great beach. And I went for a long walk, and it made me feel better. It made me pull myself out of the gray zone, and it made me come back to my equilibrium, which is my blue zone. But it's important to highlight that one experiences gray zones, and one has to think about, how do I get myself out of this? And this brings to an interesting question, like why we got here. Personally, for me, when I was going through this, I looked for tools, whether it is a podcast, whether it is a great book, mentors, colleagues, and there was no great formula for it. And it was not quite landing there for me as a human being. And I
Mm.
was, because a lot of people had lots of tips and techniques and so on and so forth, but it was just, nothing was just really comprehensive. And personally, I thought, wouldn't it be great that we create something to really help everybody, to help all the boats in the harbor? I live in a coastal town, so I'm kind of my harbor analogy, where all the boats go up. And then the federal layoffs hit, and we had park service, we had, you know, military community. These are people who have dedicated their lives to serve our country. They've been in their jobs for 20, 30, 40 years. And because they are really passionate about it. No one takes a job in, you know, Yellowstone or Grand Teton or something unless they're really passionate about it. These are hard jobs where
Hmm.
you are walking miles and miles in tracking animals, you know, building trails, maintaining trails. I mean, these are, very, and they don't get paid also. So they have built their career on their passion. So when one feels that they're upended, and that's what we're going through, we're all thinking about the same thing. How do I
Hmm.
navigate this? How do I go through this? And that was the moment. I mean, when I had like a couple different moments where I felt like I got to do something about it. And this is when you and I started talking, and you had this amazing idea. Hey, Arun, we should do a podcast. And I'm like, Nicole, I have an idea. Here's an idea of doing a podcast, right? And that's kind of how we started talking and build this. So for me, it was a couple different moments. Moment that I personally went through, then moment where I kind of went between my movements, not one or two, many, went between my blue and gray zones. Then I kind of looked for help, research, documents, videos, call whatever you want to call it.
Hmm.
And so that's my story. So what's your story,
Yeah,
Nicole?
I think the other thing, Arun, one of the things that our listeners will find out about us is Arun is very mindful, very intentional. I think one of the first times I ever met you, actually, you led us in a meditation. I probably like meditation is hard for people like me because I'm like, we should probably do something. So, I think there's two ends of the spectrum. I also think, and so your gray and blue zone, I think, is a really powerful way to remove yourself a little bit from how you're feeling and say, like, these things are feeling to me. The other thing, though, is it's also, I mean, I went through multiple iterations of feelings, right? My first one was a recognition. Ugh, this is a tough one. My first one was a recognition that I knew this was going to happen before the yellow chair. I didn't know it, but the writing was on the wall for me. And certain things that happened, and there were, organizational shifts, and I was like, this could happen to my team. We could get laid off. And I don't even necessarily think it's a bad financial or strategic decision, but instead of getting my resume ready, having conversations, doing the things that, are a little bit of offense and a little bit of defense, I was like, oh no, I'm going to dig my heels in. I'm going to prove everybody so wrong that they will never do this to my team. And I mean, this is an 80,000 person organization. Like, the hubris involved in my decision making at that moment. But I felt really strongly that I had people who I wanted to protect. And I also I was driven a little bit by ego, which is okay to say, I'm going to prove you all wrong. So the recognition that I didn't think about myself at that moment, but thought I'm going to prove everybody wrong, was a tough pill to swallow because it meant that when I was out, I was unprepared. Emotionally, the resume, I mean, all of those kind of like tactical things. So I think there was that. Then it was followed by some significant relief, which surprised me because I was devastated. Like I was heartbroken, but I also was like, I had been working so hard and not sleeping and, uh, not being my best version of myself. My mother would tell you that like I was kind of mean at the end there. And so I wasn't the best version of myself. And so I think there was a bit of relief. I was like, "Oh, I can rest for a minute. I can invest in myself for a minute." And then that was quickly followed by a absolute boatload of anger. I was mad. I was mad at a litany of moments and people and structures and decisions, and I was mad. And I think those three feelings I think happened in like the first 72 hours. And so those feelings also, like once you go through them, this idea of the 5 stages of grief, and like we actually are going to have somebody on the podcast who talks about what happens in your brain like chemically when these things happen. But those, you kind of think, oh well, I'm going to go through those feelings. No, those feelings still pop up months later, and sometimes they pop up in ways at moments where I'm like, what, why did that just happen? And so there's this, when you are in your job and when you are crushing it at work, you don't have the mental capacity or the bandwidth to like have other things kind of enter your mind. But when you don't, you have some open space there for these like bizarre little feelings to enter your head. And those feelings have a lot more power at this moment than they did at any other time in your career. So, what could feel like a moment of doubt or anger that you could write off because you had another meeting, because you had another call, because you had a project to get out the door, those feelings now have real time to like root and plant themselves and be like, "Hey, I'm still here. You thought you were gone," right? So, there's I think this like there's the thing when it happens and maybe like the first 30, 60 days after that, but then there's also what happens 120 days later, and how you can still go through those feelings. So I think our hope here is to talk about what it feels like immediately, but also to give the tools and the resources and just a lending ear for the things that happen afterwards, because it does rock you. Like it just does. And yes, it happens to everybody. Everybody has a moment in their career that they weren't expecting. Everyone has a moment in their career that they are unhappy about. And those happen. So it's okay to feel all of the blue and the gray and maybe even a little of the red zone uh, as part of it. And that's what we hope to explore here, because we have been through this recently and it is a wild human experience, but it's one that I think everybody goes through. So why don't we talk about it more? Why don't we prepare ourselves for this a little bit more? And I think one of the moments where I realized I was totally unprepared were the phone calls. And you and I talk about the phone calls that happen after a layoff in particular, because I wasn't prepared for them.
Yeah, the phone calls. This is very important actually. So when one goes through this, they get a lot of phone calls, or they may get some phone calls, and I haven't heard anybody saying that they haven't gotten any phone calls from their
Oh,
friends,
I
colleagues.
hope I hope not. That would be terrible.
Yeah, that would be bad. So I particularly got a lot of phone calls, just like how you said. And these phone calls dry up. So it's very important to kind of have this a plan towards it. Right? You get the and also very important to have a mindset whether you want to
Mhm.
take the phone or don't want to take the phone. If you don't want to take the phone call, just turn it off and don't even answer it, right? So that's number one. And in my case, I wasn't kind of in the mindset to take it, so I just turned off my phone.
Smart. I didn't do that.
Yeah,
Glutton for punishment.
that was not like something that I'm like, oh, I got to turn off the phone. I just turned off the phone. It just so happened that I didn't take the phone calls. So what what I my reflections from these phone calls, or it kind of falls into three categories. Category A are genuine, amazing colleagues who really
Mm-hmm.
want to help you, or
Mm-hmm.
friends, or family, or an ex colleague, or somebody who heard about it. And it's very important to have an ask, whether it is a recommendation or whether it is, hey, when you went through this, what do you recommend? Is there a
Mm-hmm.
hand me down, gift for me? Or or can you write me a recommendation on LinkedIn? Can you broker an introduction? Or even, can you tell me an amazing strength of myself that you have recognized over a period of time that you never really shared it, but it's always there? Kind of really helps you form an opinion, that you didn't quite have at that point. So that's number one. Incredibly valuable
Mm-hmm.
bucket. Number two is the sorry sayers, and this is like a really negative energy draw, where I am sorry this happened to you. In my lens is that you got to cut down the negative voice, because it has an incredibly bad impact on your energy level and psychology and all sorts of things. And number three is the worst. You call them, right? What is it called? Car crash
Car
chasers?
crash TV. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. They're there for
Car,
the blood and the gore.
yeah. These guys, you gotta get rid of them. Yeah, thank you, appreciate it. All right, we'll talk later. So those are the three buckets, of calls that you get, at least for
Mm.
me.
Yeah.
And it's important to have an ask. It's important to have a strategy. And as I look back, for me it was Netflix. I call it the 24 hours of Netflix will cure anything. You just have to
Obviously,
have good.
should be a title of a book.
Yeah,
Therapy
yeah,
by
it should
Netflix.
be. It should be 24 hours of Netflix. And so when I went through this in my career, what I did was I turned on my phone, turned on my TV, and started watching Netflix. And it was a very liberating moment for me, because I'm a big Netflix trailer watcher. I'm one of these people who watches trailers of every freaking
But
shows that,
not the whole thing?
not the whole thing. My family gets so frustrated
Oh,
when
this
we,
would drive my family insane, but I like it. I love a good trailer.
yeah. So then I note down, right, okay, this is something that I want to watch. And I add it to my list. And I'm at a point where my list is so crazy. It has like 500 things that I need to watch. Literally, there's like 507 shows that I need to watch. And I'm like, this is an incredible moment in 24 hours. How many shows can I watch?
Set the
So
bar high.
yeah, set the bar high. So I got a glass of water, and and then um, and then sat in front of my TV and started watching the shows. And I'm a big fan of all Indian shows, Bollywood shows, short series, detective series, or fraudster series. My favorite one, the one that they're doing in a state called Jharkhand in India, is about these bunch of kids who's scamming the entire country with phishing scams.
Mm.
So that was my moment. It really was uplifting. My wife at one point was like, "What the hell are you doing at 2 a.m. in the morning watching TV?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm watching Netflix. Some of
I'm in
these shows."
therapy.
Yeah, Netflix therapy. 24 hours of Netflix. That's the cure for everything and anything.
I love it. I want to go back to the phone calls, because I think there's two pieces of information. One is if you are getting the phone calls, and one is if you are making the phone calls. So I think like the first 72 hours, it was just like one after another, after another, after another calling me. And I remember looking at my phone, you know, those scenes in movies where they like toss it into the ocean because they're like, I can't take it. That's how I felt. I was like, I don't know what to say to anybody else. I didn't have an ask, as you so rightfully point out, but I also didn't know the difference between the three buckets. And I had a lot of sorry sayers. And I think sorry sayers are really tempting if this has just happened to you. They're kind of like junk food. You know what I mean? Like it feels really good at the time, but like the long term additives can be pretty diminishing or downright toxic because you do want to go down that rabbit hole a little bit. I'm so mad about this and I can't believe this person got to stay and I didn't. And I can't believe that this happened to my team. And I can't believe, and I can't, like you can go down that rabbit hole really fast and it feels good, but it doesn't do you any benefit whatsoever. And in fact, some of the sorry sayers, like I had people call me and say things like, I'm so sorry this happened to you. I don't know how much longer I'll be able to take it here as a result of this happening. And it's like, ooh, I get why you think that that would be helpful for me, but actually, it's not. In fact, it's incredibly painful for me because you may not love the situation you're in right now, but you have a certain amount of like security and confidence that has just been ripped out from underneath me. So if you're thinking about making a phone call when someone has just done this, don't be a sorry sayer. Like you can be empathetic and you can say, I am sorry this happened. But if you want to get into the like, it's a real bummer and it's so bad here, like just don't, because it's
Yeah.
not about you. And in that instance, you make it about you and not about them. And trust me when I tell you that the negative impact it has on them far outweighs the positive effect you think it may have on you. And it's that is a real moment of pain for someone. And if you don't have it framed correctly before you make the call, don't make the call.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because I couldn't believe how many people fell into the sorry sayers bucket, and I left those conversations feeling a million times worse than when I picked up the phone. And I couldn't exactly figure out why, by the way. I mean, it took some reflection for me to get there, but I was just like, oh, that was terrible.
I think what you're saying here, Nicole, is this is a moment of reframe. And it's important to have a perspective on how you're going to reframe it. And the reframe is, how can I help? Or how can you help me? And I think when we're going through difficult times in our life, the emotions always take precedence over the logics.
Mm,
And the emotions come in, and then we are like, once the emotion comes in, then we can't really make great decisions about anything, and it just gets stuck. So what we are recommending to everybody who's going through this, or talking to anybody who's going through this, is ask the person on the other side, hey, how can I help you? What is the one thing that I can do that will be of great help to you?
mm-hmm,
And I think once one asks that question, it also resets the brain, and it resets into thinking that, oh, there's some help here. And oh, I have an opportunity to ask this question. So that's number one.
mm-hmm,
Number two, and I have spoken to so many people, probably close to like 100 people, hundreds of people, in the industry who've been through and who are going through these scenarios. And one of the things that I mention is, it is not about you. You are amazing. You are incredible. You had a wonderful career. You are an amazing, amazing employee, father, husband, all sorts of things. It's about the ecosystem that you're in. It's
mm-hmm,
about the company that you're in. It's about the economy. They're going in a different direction, and you're not part of it. It's not about you, your performance, or any of that. Because once we remove ourselves from this situation, then it kind of doesn't hit it that way. Then we're creating a movement for a logic to prevail versus the emotion to prevail. So it's also important to recognize and realize that it's not about me. It's about the broader construct that I am in.
But I think that takes some time.
It
I
does.
I think you got there much faster than I did, candidly. Um, but it takes a while because, there's there's reality, and then how you feel. And my head knows it's not about me. Like I have made layoff decisions about other people, right? And I wanted to tell them, and I did tell them, this isn't about you. And yet, despite having done that myself and said it a million times, when it happened to me, I didn't feel that way. I couldn't quite like unlock the it's not about you. And for me, I think the other part about it is, and we're going to talk about this in depth in another episode, but there is a real identity and value question that enters into the equation in a way in which you hadn't. Now, you and I are the same in terms of like we were always high performers. We went on incentive trips a lot. We got, the most you could in bonus time. Like there was a lot of positive reinforcement throughout our career, but you're on the other side of this and you're like, I don't know how to articulate my value anymore. I don't know um I don't know who I am without this company. And I think this was for those of us in tech, we should be really used to it. I could imagine if you are in the IRS or you work at USAID or something like that, like talk about identity. That is the career. You and I work in tech, which means we could work it at 400 different organizations. There is only one government. And so like the identity attachment to your job, while totally understandable and often very helpful to your ego, goes through a real tough time in this moment. And I think one of the things that you did, which I thought was so good, was you actually, again, this is where like Arun's mindfulness and my pragmatism meet in the middle. You actually wrote down something I thought was so incredibly powerful about who you were as a human, having nothing to do with your career. Do you still have that? Do you remember that? Do you know what I'm
I
talking
do
about?
have it. Let me see.
Okay. Whew,
Didn't I text it to you? Let me
you
just
did.
go back to my
Yeah,
text
yeah,
here.
yeah, you did. And it's funny because when you texted it to me, you and I talk a lot about careers. We talk a lot about careers. We talk a lot about connections. We talk a lot about really boring things like AI. But you texted me something that had nothing to do with any of those things. You texted me about you. So if you have it, let's hear it.
Yeah, I have it. Let me just bring it up here. So I wrote down I am curious, kind, loving, and grateful. I approach life with optimism, mindfulness, acting deliberately, and seeking innovative solutions. I prioritize others above myself, and my family is my greatest love. I strive to be the best dad and husband I can. Money is never my motivation. I possess an inner strength, and I call it ICE, in depth. I am a perpetual student. I carry peace within me, and I am unstoppable force of nature, effortlessly achieving what seems improbable or impossible. So when I wrote this thing down, I felt my superpower. And so when we're talking about this motion of one goes through this, right? I felt like I have wings and I felt my superpower.
Because you were lifted by something that wasn't a massive organization and a title and a salary.
Yeah. Yeah. I was totally relieved from my ego,
Yeah,
right?
it's so important.
And that was the moment, right? We talk about the moment or
Mhm.
moments. That was the moment.
Yeah. Another moment for me was I was getting so this is now a couple months after like the main hit. And I was taking a lot of phone calls from people like you, other executives in tech, outside of tech, like just kind of all over the board. And I don't know, I was having like 12 conversations a week with various parts of my life or my career or whatever. And everybody was grappling with this same thing, which is I'm of a certain age, I'm of a certain title, I'm of a certain expectation for what my career means to me. And I'm lost. The job market is a disaster. Don't even talk to me about LinkedIn, which Arun lovingly calls the digital sewer. And like, what do I do? And I don't have an answer for that. But what I did say was, if there are 12 people having this conversation with me, why don't we bring us all together so that we can have a conversation together about what this is? Because I can't solve this for you. And I'm a believer that, like, when you can multiply great minds, the impact is exponential. And that was the idea for what we now call the Phoenix Club, which is a group of like-minded executives who are all going through this moment in some way, shape, or form together. And one of the things, in fact, the thing that we're doing later this afternoon is talking about our narratives and talking about what value do we bring. But in order to do that, I think you have to start where you just did, which is like, what makes me me? And for me, that was really hard. Like, I think you ripped that off in a matter of minutes. I struggled with that pretty significantly, because I have a definition of what success looks like that feels really unstable right now. I mean, I think one of the memories that when I think about, when I tell people about what happened, was like, you're standing on a floor, you're holding court, you're flying all over the world, you've got a mic in your hand, people are intently listening to what you have to say. And then all of a sudden that carpet goes, rips out from underneath you. You're on your back, like, as a turtle, help. You're just totally alone and upside down. And that happens overnight, instantaneously. It took a 1 hour phone call, not even, it was like a 15-minute phone call for me to be on my back. And so the Phoenix Club, and the idea that you've got to find your people who, if you can't define that for yourself, they will help you do it, has been, for me, one of the most important moments of my adult career. And one of the things I'm most proud of in this moment, that we have this amazing group of humans who never knew each other before we got on a call together.
Yeah. And it brings an important topic, right? Never search alone.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it written
We've
by
got
Phil?
the author coming from that book.
Who is it? Who's the author? Is it?
His name is Phil Terry. And actually, someone in the Phoenix Club introduced me to that book. And the idea is never search alone. I mean, it's not a hard concept to think through, but never search alone, even when you're employed or looking for something else. Like, it's just a general, um, you know, kind of mantra for how you should approach your career. So he's
That
coming. He's
that
coming.
brings in a
I'm super
very,
excited.
yeah. I am so excited
Yeah.
about the author coming into the show. I think that'll be a fun one. It brings a very interesting question, right? WTF? What's happening to job market?
Wow. 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 Yeah. It's bleak, isn't it?
It is. It is. It is
It's bleak.
insane. I actually was part of a conversation yesterday, and I want to put some spotlight in this, where I spoke to somebody who applied for a particular job, and this is an executive job, and the companies are now asking people to be part of a group discussion, um,
With other candidates?
other candidates, and then they will select the candidate, and
Ew,
then
that's
the
like the Hunger
person, and I'm
Games.
like, who came up with this interview process? That was just really weird.
That's so bad. That's so bad. Well, I think one of the struggles that I've had is, when I entered as a, mid to senior level executive versus where I exited, the whole game changed. Where do people like you and I find jobs? Because I can tell you where it's not, and it is not in, where my anxiety goes to thrive and my will to live goes to die, otherwise known as LinkedIn, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's not there.
aka digital sewer.
The digital sewer, yes, which is a necessary evil. Okay, we all get that. And one of the people from our Phoenix Club, who we'll have on the podcast, used to work at LinkedIn, so he cringes every time we say this. But it's tough because the people who on my team, for instance, who are at a senior manager or director or an individual contributor level, great for them. They can find jobs all day long. The people at our level, tough. It is a different marketplace, and it's just a bad market period writ large. I think there was an article yesterday in The Atlantic. Then the title was "The Job Market is Frozen." So it is a tough time in general to be looking for a job. I think the higher you go up the ladder in terms of expectations, title, team, things like that, obviously you're in a different level of rarefied air. So the jobs are even fewer. But now, like, there is a huge gap in the market for folks like us because we're not finding our next job on LinkedIn. And you tell I love the story about, like, it's 8 o'clock at night. You're thinking about going to bed and you make the really terrible life decision to open LinkedIn.
Oh my gosh, you're making me relive the
I'm
moment.
sorry, I'm giving you PTSD.
I'm getting this PTSD from LinkedIn, aka digital sewer. So what happened? I I thought, and I'm an engineer, so my brain always is wired for experiments and controlled experiments and data sets and all that other stuff. So
Once
I'm like,
again, we're very different humans.
yeah, we are, and that's why we are such good friends. We are
Mhm.
polar opposite. So so what I did, I'm like, wouldn't it be great? I try and this tool, I'm not really active, but I have a great network in LinkedIn, which I think perceived network, and
Oh, those numbers are so deceiving.
yeah, the numbers are very deceiving. Like, you may have 10,000 followers, but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so so I thought I will just go look for some jobs and apply for them and see how this goes. So I kind of selected a bunch of them. I'm like, these are great jobs. I'm just gonna apply for them. And in some of the jobs, I even had network people in it. But in my in my overzealous enthusiastic moment, I'm really in this moment of I really want to find out my sample size.
Mm.
So I applied for a sample of jobs. But before that, before I even did that, I want to talk about how I got there. So when you get into LinkedIn, you're seeing people high fiving each other and
Ugh, it's the
saying that I've
worst.
done this, I went to World Economic Forum, spoke about
Uh-huh.
all these things.
Mhm.
I felt like a teenager. I felt like, my teenager. And
Mm.
and they are in Instagram, they're looking at people,
Ugh, yeah.
in diets and ripped bodies and swimsuit models and all sorts of things. And this Instagram is creating this interesting moment in every teenager where they're feeling that, okay, what is my worth?
Mhm.
Why am I not like that person?
Mhm.
I think the as adults are
We're the
are
same.
we're the
We're the
same,
same as
we're
our
exactly the
teenagers.
same, but we are not
Don't tell them.
open in admitting it. You know what I mean? We're not
Yeah.
open, we're not saying it.
Well, and our brain is having the same chemical reaction. Actually, like, on a cellular level, we're having the exact same dopamine hit that they are getting with, like, Get Ready With Me or whatever that nonsense my daughter watches is.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah, for me it was a
Ugh.
dopamine scarcity because
Mm.
I didn't get any hits after watching this. And that's when I'm like, "Oh my god, I am in this digital sewer and I'm drowning in it." Right?
It is so true. And also, I don't know if you noticed, but, like, sometimes I read these things and I'm like, "I know you. Hello." Like, I I know that's total bullshit, and I know someone else wrote it for you, and it's so annoying to me. And then, you have to kind of be like, "Okay, you put it in its place, but you can't do that at 10 o'clock at night. Don't do it." Like, there should be a warning label.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
won't be able, like, your rational brain will not take over.
That was something that I totally ignored. And so now it was 11, and after an hour of indulging myself in self-promotion and congratulation in this digital sewer, I'm like, maybe I should apply for some jobs. And by this time, I have like this dopamine scarcity in my mind, and my scarcity mindset have kicked in. I am totally in my gray zone. But my engineer is saying, okay, great. How do you solve this problem? You have to have a sample size. You got to apply for a job, and you got to not one, just like five of them, so that you will figure out. So I'm like, great. Let me just do this, see what happens. So I applied for a bunch of it, and I felt like I were a good fit for these jobs, but I really
Mm.
wanted to know what the hell's going to happen if I apply. And within like, I don't even know, I went to bed like 6 7 hours while I was sleeping, while the whole America is sleeping. I got a bunch of
Because
rejections.
they had read your resume in depth and decided that
Yeah,
Arun's great at no
yeah. At this
nonsense.
moment, we have
You
found
were
another
rejected by a
candidate.
computer.
Yeah, at this moment, we have found another candidate. So we have
Sure
decided to
you have.
move on with the other candidate. 3 a.m. in the morning. So, folks, what what I'm saying is that job market is totally weaponized by bots and AIs.
Hmm.
No one is looking at your resume. No one. There, I don't know the statistics, but I'm probably damn sure that probably like 0.1% of the resumes that are profiles that
Well, and
you
some
know.
of those job listings are total nonsense. They're actually called ghost jobs, which was a term that I wish I didn't know. But they're it's one of those like, oh, we have to post it externally for X amount of days, but have absolutely no intention of hiring it. And there's two of us on this call. There's 12 of us in the Phoenix Club. Our combined network is probably in the tens of thousands, and every single one of us is having the same problem. Like, oh, the numbers are not in our favor.
Yeah, yeah. So there goes my LinkedIn story, completely out through the door. So I think the moral of the story is you got to have your own network,
Hmm.
and not the network that you once meet or phone call somebody, a network that is always with you, that you're constantly communicating, a
Yeah.
network that is there for your gray zones to uplift you, network that is there with your blue zones to kind of make you believe that you are a superhuman, you have the power, you can do amazing things. And I think Phil Terry talked about this in Never Search Alone. That is a moment of never search alone, right? And so I want to compare and contrast this LinkedIn world
Hmm.
of digital sewer of self promotion, self congratulation, ruled by AI and bots and a network. And I
Hmm.
think this is where I think, from my perspective, the human to human interaction, friends,
Yeah.
network is the net worth.
Yeah. We're going to talk a lot. Like, we're going to have the Phoenix Club on. We're going to talk about how we formed that, why it's important. But for me, that was the game changer. I think the other thing is I'm sure I am, as you probably have picked up, I am a relative extrovert. In fact, I'm like so extroverted, it's like off the page. Arun is more on the introverted side of the camp. But you would think that Nicole would have absolutely no problem picking up a phone and calling and asking somebody for something. I'm actually horrible at it. I am I don't like doing it for myself. I will call all day long for everybody on the Phoenix Club, in the Phoenix Club. Like, that for me is so much more comfortable, and I'm sure there is an additive benefit, net gain for me personally, but I struggle to be like, "Hey, can you I'm not good at it." So I have to take a different approach. And it's not to say that I'm doing or I'm in the Phoenix Club for my own personal gain, but you also have to, like, if you're uncomfortable with that, that's okay. You've got to work it. I used to have when I remember how I talked about that, like, I think I know that layoffs are coming, but I'm not doing anything about it. I did write on a post it note, one new contact a week. Now, I'm pretty well networked as a human, and I'm exceptionally well networked inside of the organization I was at. But turns out actually that doesn't really mean anything when you leave. And I didn't do that, make new one new contact a week. And I felt it. Like, it's harder your when you go through these moments. So yeah, network is your net worth is a real thing. We are going to have multiple podcasts on this, because I think the other piece of it is there's several levers. Like, you can have a mentor, you can have an activator, you can have a confidant, and those things and those humans are important for different reasons. So we're going to get into all of this. We have so much to get into.
Yeah.
And we hope that this is helpful, because this is what you and I needed. Um,
So, Nicole, we've been here for past 54 minutes. We've had a
oh
great
golly, I hope people are
conversation.
still with us.
And so, what is our call for action?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, number one is tune in. We've got a lot of good folks coming. We've even got, people like founders who, did the thing and made the money and then woke up and were like, I don't know what to do next. So I think we've got a lot of assets and people and, like, conversations that people need to hear. The second thing I would say is you got to find your Phoenix Club. Like, you have to know who those people are. And if you need help with that, start with one. Believe me, it will grow. We're actually meeting. I'm bummed. Arun lives on the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast, but some of the East Coasties are getting together next week in person. So we're super pumped about that. But you've got to find those people, and because they will give you the hard truth. In fact, like the narrative pitch that we're doing, like when I'm in my gray zone or when I'm having a 0 out of 10 day, that's the group that I go to, and they pick me back up. So find your Phoenix Club, and like then last but not least, you got to be ready. Like, this world is unpredictable. Have your resume done. Get somebody who you care about to give you hard feedback on it, and gird your loins because it's rough out there. But the hope is that we give you some assets and some tools and some people to help guide you through this moment. What about you?
That's
Anything from
incredible.
your end?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nicole. That's incredible. So for me, I would say three things. I'm a big fan of three things. Fourth thing, I
Yep.
don't even remember. So number
Love
one
a
is a
little
mind.
alliteration.
Yeah. Number one is a mindset shift, right? And that the mindset shift is so important. We talked so much about this mindset shift and reframing yourself. And so that's number one. Number two is the network. Your network
Mhm.
is your net worth. And by the way, your network is not LinkedIn. Yeah, it has a billion people, but look beyond that. Look underneath that. Build your
Mhm.
network. And number three is make a list of 30 people that you're going to call in next 30 days. Set some aggressive target. Talk to them. And by the way, it's not talking to them and asking them, hey, I need a job. It's like really having a conversation about, hey, what are you seeing in the market?
Yeah.
Who do you think is hiring? What are some of the new jobs?
Yeah, you got to
So,
reignite that like intellectual curiosity that isn't rooted in your company that you're at today.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
agree.
unbox yourself because most of the time companies look at boxes like, oh, you're a CIO. I'm going to put this person in a CIO box, or you're an engineer, put this person in an engineer box, or a park ranger. Unbox yourself because
Mhm.
once you unbox yourself, the possibilities are endless,
Yeah.
endless, endless. The human potential is just unlocking that is just endless. So that's it. That's my top three.
Listen, I feel like we could have about 7 top 3s, and we're gonna get into all of them here. I hope people are finding this helpful. I know that for me, it's incredibly cathartic to try and share my experiences as part of my own healing process, and I hope other people will as well. I'm incredibly grateful to you, Arun, for being our I would have never been able to navigate all of the, Spotify and the, production side of this. So I'm incredibly grateful to have you as my partner. And like, let's do this. Joe Rogan, we're coming for you.
Yes, Joe Rogan, we're coming for you. So thank you, Nicole. So I wanna close this out by expressing gratitude to everybody in my life, including my previous employers,
Hmm.
for being in this position. Right. So that's number one. Number two, gratitude to our listeners. Hey, you guys, you have a lot of important things in your life to do, and you prioritized us. More importantly, you prioritize yourself, your personal growth, your professional growth, your career. So thank you. And this is not a one and done. We're going to have a series of podcasts, so stay tuned. We have an Instagram page. Visit our Instagram page. We'll see you all soon. Bye bye.
Bye.